Let's dive into sleepers, busts, what we're looking for. Obviously, we're gearing up for some fantasy football leagues coming up here, and we want to make sure you guys, we've already covered a lot of our rankings and tier lists. We've already gone through a lot of what we think is going to be, more of the impact players, but now it's getting into some of the guys that might not have big names or might not have a lot going on the big scheme of like the radar of your draft leagues, but might either make a difference, or if they're a big time name that might not rise to the top this year and you think they're going to fall on their face, maybe they're a bust. But generally, let's talk about, Scotty, draft strategies first. Let's talk about like what, we've talked about this a little bit last year. We talked about it, about how the wide receivers have kind of taken over drafts now. Back, 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, it was running back right off the top. Now, things were coming off and saying like, people were still valuing the running back position. That's not the case anymore. There's strategies out there that are zero running back strategies and all wide receiver or tight end or trying to get your position players intact before you dive into, getting into, it's more of a value play, right? Scotty, I know last year you had some tips on like drafting tight ends. I think that was, a big piece that you recommended. What? Hey, Squan. By the way, Squan, we're Packers fans. Oh, nice. There we go. Milwaukee's a Packers fan, obviously, so you'll be right at home. There you go.
You should know we rank the Packers actually as our top defense.
That's right.
In the league going into this year.
That's right.
I believe the Packers are going to look a lot different this year. I think they're going to be carried by their defense. I think they're going to still be good, but it's not going to be on Aaron Rodgers' shoulders anymore, and it can't be. I think that offense is going to at times struggle, move the ball a little bit more conservatively, but that defense is very, very good.
Rec, I value running backs in fantasy, don't in actual football. So yeah, Scotty, what are your thoughts on the running back position drafting? Now, we only had 2 running backs in our top tier, and then it kind of fell off from there. You still have good running backs. It's just the workhorses and what you're getting kind of just turns. It takes a leap down after a handful of guys. So what, from a just drafting standpoint, first round, let's say you're at the top of your, like, how would you draft if you had like a top third, draft pick versus a middle range first round draft pick versus a end of the first round draft pick? What would your strategy be? This is awkward, Chris, because we literally have drafts with a lot of our followers. We do. One tomorrow and one on Monday. So it's awkward in that fashion, but I'm going to be honest here. A lot of it depends on draft position to me. A lot of it does. So when we say that I value wide receivers or tight ends, I do. But running backs are there. There's even after the top 2, that next tier, maybe let's say there's 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 guys in there. And then after that, it's kind of unpredictable. So the reason in fantasy football that people take running backs earlier is because the depth isn't there. Wide receiver, you have depth across the board. It's a passing league. You have a ton of guys that could blow up. You could see what happens. At running back, there's only there's not even a third of the teams that even employ a one running back system. Not most teams, rely on 2-3 running backs in different sets and different scenarios and share carries and all of those things. So, 10 years ago, that wouldn't have been the case, but now that's the reality. So that's why it's really important to get those running backs early, because you want one of those individuals that gets a lot of touches,
whether it's in carries or in the passing game, wherever it may be. You also want to be in a good offense that's going to score points because touchdowns are huge, right? Wide receiver wise, you have like a top tier of 3, and then you have a secondary tier that's really, really good as well. For me, Chris, it's honestly about where you're picking. I don't want to give away all my strategy necessarily, but depending on where you're picking, you could go like literally, depending on where you're picking, where the board falls, you could be in a spot where you take 2 wide receivers in your first 2 picks, and I wouldn't blame you. And you could take 2 running backs in your first 2 picks, and I wouldn't blame you based off of where the value is and where your pick falls. It's a super interesting year. And then bringing in the tight ends, I think there's a tier of 3 for sure. We talked about it. If you go back and watch our other stream, if you want to look at our fantasy football tight end streams, but you probably can figure it out. There's 3 that I think separate themselves, and then there's another like 3 that like are the next tier, and then it kind of falls into like a lot of like the same. I mean, everything's projections, right? And you never really know. Like that's the deal. Like you could make what a lot of people perceive as the worst pick in a round they've ever seen, and it becomes the best pick you made that round or ever. Like True. That's the crazy thing about this. So do I have an exact strategy based off of like you should do this or this? No, I think a lot depends. Like for me, Chris, in our 2 leagues, they're 12-team leagues. I literally draft 2nd and 11th. And I'm going to have totally different strategies for those leagues based off of who I'm going to target at those spots, because it's so different on who's going to be available and who makes sense at that spot. So, people may watch me pick tomorrow and be like, oh, I figured him out. And I'm like, it's going to be totally different.
You know what's interesting, too, is the fact that, like, you know, sometimes you have those. I mean, you have the people in the beginning of the draft that love those first picks. But then there's also those, like, questionable picks. Like, you get the Christian McCaffrey type picks where it's like you're taking a little bit of a gamble, but you know it's going to pay off if he stays healthy, right? But he hasn't stayed healthy. So, you know, Reckoning is mentioned. The middle picks are the best picks, and you know I think that there's
maybe
it depends on also like how the draft lays out, right? So like let's say you have 3 or 4 guys in mind. I mean, you can still probably get a solid pick. I mean, regardless. I mean, even at the bottom of the first round, like let's say you're at the bottom of the first round, you're a 12th pick, and there's like a Travis Kelce there or something along those lines. Or if there's a guy that you feel really strongly about, that you have a pick between running back or wide receiver, you can have some flexibility. You have a little bit of everything available to you. Like I always worry about the first picks. I always worry about them because they're always like, guys like in the running back position that can get hurt. We've had Derrick Henry in the first position or top 2 positions that he's gotten hurt. I mean, we've had Christian McCaffrey in the top 2 positions. Wide receivers tend to be a little bit more, have more longevity, but there's not that many running backs. So there's so many factors to take into account here. And I want to know your draft strategies in the chat. Let us know what you guys prefer, what you guys like, who you like, and what you're potentially taking, or well, not, you don't have to share what you're taking, but what your strategies are, if you would like to, because I like to get to know like what other people are doing.
I would like to know what each of you that are in our leagues are doing, actually specifically.
Not everybody. Rec's not in our league, and he is.
No, Mackey's like, you can change the entire tempo with back-to-back picks because he has the 12th and 13th pick, or he has the 12th pick in our league tomorrow night. So he's gonna have back-to-back picks that'll be wasted because I'm at 11 and 14, and I can't wait for that. I'll be honest, Chris. I'll share something. I had the 2nd pick in our Monday league. I will take the leftovers of Jonathan Taylor or Christian McCaffrey, and it won't be a second thought to me.
Yeah. No, I mean that's
Whoever Held does not take, I will take that other player, and I won't feel bad about it. Not 1 second.
Yeah. No, I mean that seems fair. And then the running backs kind of drop off a little bit after that. So, when it comes to, your strategies, just keep in mind that, just if one of the strategies I always kind of try to send out to people is like, don't jump on crazy like trains. Like, so let's say a Travis Kelce goes in the second round, and all of a sudden you're like, oh man, I need to get a tight end quick. And you see like another tight end come off, and you're still coming up, and there's a guy that you really like, be careful about the trains that start with like a tight end or a defense or something early on with some of like random picks that might happen, to not get sucked into those trends. That's the one thing that I always try to recommend, because that always happens. And you always see that list of tight ends in like a round and a half that just go all off the board. And I love seeing that, because that makes me more available to get my wide receivers, to my running backs, my skill positions filled, maybe a quarterback. Now get your, there's some elite quarterbacks out there. You want to make sure that, you're timing those picks correctly as well. Typically, I think quarterbacks are starting to come off the board maybe in the second round in a lot of drafts, from what I've seen from statistics on ESPN and average draft position, ADP. So keep in mind, you can always do mock drafts through these various platforms and kind of get a handle of things. But
yeah, that's why we picked our draft position last show. So hopefully you guys know what slot you're picking at, so you can join some mock drafts and get a feel for like, what available players might be there for your, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, throughout the draft picks. Quite frankly, it may not be the exact thing that occurs, but at least you get if you do a few, you kind of get a feel for where you'd like to head with your draft, whether you want to go running back, wide receiver, quarterback, tight end, defense. Defense is important. Kicker is crucial. Yeah. Listen, a lot of people are hating on injury-prone people. I'll share a philosophy that's probably not shared and doesn't necessarily need to be shared by people. And I think I've shared it before, Chris. My philosophy with people that are hurt, I'm being completely honest here, Mackie, is in fantasy football, I'm not looking to finish in a 12-team league 4th or 5th. I'm not looking to finish 3rd.
You're looking for the home run.
So I'm ready to take the risk on someone that might be injury prone in the past because of what they could be despite that. So a lot of people won't take McCaffrey in the top 5. And I get that. I understand. He hasn't been available the last 2 years. Like, that makes total sense to me why you would avoid that. For me, the if and it's I understand it's a big if, and it's a big if in the top 2 picks. If he is available, he's gonna boom. If he plays all year, he's gonna be great. Just like Jonathan Taylor. But everyone's like talking about Henry versus McCaffrey. Forgive me, did Henry not miss half of last season? I mean, he just missed half of last season,
and he still had.
And I know McCaffrey and Henry.
He still had crazy
even
stats.
In PPR leagues. So both of ours are PPR. So if you guys are in our leagues, they're PPR leagues. So point per reception. If you don't know, look that up. Henry's not a big pass catching back, but he's a dominant running back. Absolutely. And he was the number 1 back last year before he got hurt. So that could also be a reason to take him. He dominated the league last year, even without catching the ball a lot. He was absolutely insane. And then he got hurt for half the season. So I'm not saying not to pick Henry, but saying, oh, I'm going to take Henry over McCaffrey because of health. Well, Henry just lost the last half of last season. And I know McCaffrey's basically lost the last 2, so I get that. But I don't know. I'm a boomer bust guy.
I'm with you too, though.
I would rather finish. Like if I finish, there's no difference to me of finishing like 4th versus 12th. Either way, I feel like I just failed, quite frankly.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that like, you know, you want to make sure that you are giving yourself the best opportunity to have like explosive weeks. And, you know, these guys that, you know, Christian McCaffrey, like, you know, any of these guys that like are typically getting hurt a lot have the potential when they're healthy to have explosive weeks. And I mean, Derrick Henry, all of them. Like, you want to just make sure that you are thinking about that when it comes to, will this guy just be average for me and just get me a solid 15, or can he get me like 30 on those weeks that I really need him to? Can he get me 35 on those weeks that it, like, or you know, high ceiling versus floor. Like,
if you look at a guy and you're like, I know this player is going to give me more points week to week, but he's injury prone versus other player, anyone in the league can get injured. You're injury prone until you're not, and you're also not injury prone until you're not. Like, yes, there are some players that tend to get injured more often than others, but I wouldn't rely on that. Like, especially at the running back position, players get hurt all the time at the running back position, and to me, it's random. It's not a sequential thing. It's totally, completely random, in my opinion. So when evaluating those, a Mandalorian, what's up? I always love when a Mandalorian joins us.
Absolutely.
She's one of my favorites.
Absolutely. So, by the way, Diacola in the chat earlier, no idea what the heck I'm doing. And Reckoning was like, funny thing is, a couple years ago, 2 people had no clue what fantasy football was and ended up winning in meeting each other in the final. So there's that. I mean, it's you can't predict that. Don't stress out about it too, because you can't predict if your players that you draft that are always healthy end up coming back and just getting hurt somehow. So it's kind of a roll of the dice regardless. You just don't know, but you can set yourself up for success when it comes to, you know, again, there's opportunities of teams that you will know are going to be playing from behind. Like another rule of thumb for me, I know teams that are always playing from behind. I might not like and I might fade their running backs. I don't like running backs on teams that are constantly. So when you're talking about some of the worst teams in the league, the Jets running backs, I know they have a nice core of like 2 or 3 guys that they like to run. That's another reason maybe why. But keep an eye on those types of trends as well. If you think a team is going to be successful and very good and have a good record at the end of the season, maybe that's because they're throwing the ball and they have a nice balanced attack. They're getting good leads. They can run the ball a little more effectively. You can look at those running backs in those situations. So there's a lot of ways you can, like, you know, think about these games in a different way to maybe prioritize some players over others, right? So keep that in mind as well. Devil Doc, Christian McCaffrey is one of the best running backs when healthy. Sirius in the chat. Scotty, I talked to Dr. J. She said she loves the Action Lab. She said she has a bottle of Super Bowl win from KC for Scotty. So
I mean, I honestly don't know what to say to that outside of we love Dr. J and are here for her with whatever she needs during
tough time.
This time that I can't literally fathom.
It's crazy. And thoughts and prayers again. Like, it's tough. What else do we got in the chat? Let's see. Lawrence is my sleeper. So speaking of Broncos, talking about sleepers, Lamar Jackson, first overall, best running back in the league, says Reckoning. The problem is he doesn't fit into the running back slot. But he's going to be. That's another thing. Keep in mind, running quarterbacks that are good with their feet, and maybe not necessarily like, or quarterback. Yeah, I said quarterbacks, right? Quarterbacks who might be
Reckoning
good. Might
fooled
be,
you by saying Lamar Jackson was the best running back in the league.
Yeah, exactly. Just because a quarterback is good in like regular watching the game football doesn't mean that he's going to be as good as some of the other fantasy. I mean, we talked about, Trey Lance being a better fantasy option than maybe some guys that you might watch weekly on the football field based off of like just pocket passing and everything else, because what he can do with his legs. Keep in mind, quarterbacks get a point for running 10 yards, right? Pretty good if you're a running quarterback. So you're getting those points through the air and through the ground. So you're getting value out of those. So running quarterbacks are really good. But let's dive into sleepers, who you like and maybe like might be under the radar. Scotty, let's start with sleepers. Anybody that you like a little bit more that stands out when it comes to guys that you might target in the middle rounds that might surprise people?
I mean, middle rounds is sleepers are defined as wherever. Like, where is a sleeper? Is it middle round? Is it late round?
Middle to late, I would say.
I think mostly you're finding wide receiver sleepers in the middle rounds. I think there's a lot of dudes there. I think you can get like Juju Smith for the Chiefs in the middle rounds. I know I'm a Chiefs fan, so that's easy. There's a lot of wide receivers I think you can get value on in the middle rounds. Whether it's, Christian Kirk is going late, and we make fun of Christian Kirk. We do on this stream. But at the same time, he was paid $20 million to play for the Jacksonville Jaguars. They're going to throw him the football. That's just a reality. Whether he's good or not doesn't matter. They're going to throw him the ball to make it look like it was a good signing. I think he's a sleeper. I think Devontae Smith is going too low. Second-year guy in Philadelphia. I know they added A.J. Brown, and you have questions on, the quarterback with Jalen Hurts and whether he can put the ball on people enough. But Devontae Smith, are we failing to realize how good he was in college 2 years ago? Like, that dude is really, really hard to guard. And you add A.J. Brown to that offense, I think that only adds to Devontae Smith's value. I think he's going way too low. You have Dobbs in Green Bay that's just going off. Thank you, Chimichanga. One of my favorite words, by the way, is chimichanga.
General Chimichanga.
In the history of the world.
Who's your team? Where are you from? Like to get to know you a little bit.
Dobbs in Green Bay, everyone's always all of a sudden like he's wide receiver 1. He's going to blow up. Obviously, Pickens is blowing up as a rookie in Pittsburgh on that front. On the running back front, Chris, it's really, really hard for me because I want to pinpoint these guys late. Tomorrow, literally.
But you have no control over what happens. But yeah,
I have more control over late picks more than like early obvious picks. Then the draft board opens up. There's a few running backs on the younger side of things that I would pinpoint late. I would never, ever, ever, ever. I'll say this: I'll never draft a running back that's old late. When you're drafting a running back late in the draft of your fantasy league, always take upside. Always take upside. Or someone that maybe if their starter gets hurt will just fill in and be dominant. I've said before, like an Alex Madison for Minnesota. Love Dalvin Cook. Think he's great. Dalvin Cook's got hurt through the years at times, not excessively, but at times. And Madison's come in and filled in and been almost the same dude, quite frankly. He becomes a top 10 running back play if Dalvin Cook gets hurt. So that's a guy, like, if you want to target a guy that at late in rounds that, like, if, you're obviously only playing him if Dalvin Cook gets hurt, but once or if Dalvin Cook gets hurt, he's like, honestly, if I'm taking like a tier 2 running back on a team that won't play a lot and I wouldn't start, but if the starter gets injured, Madison's number one for me. Madison is so good. And he's underrated. He'd be a starting running back on a lot of teams. And I also think Minnesota's offense is going to blow up this year. You added Kevin O'Connell as head coach coming from the Rams. That's going to be a new, fun offense. Maybe the running game doesn't blow up, but the offense in general is going to move the ball, which allows more TD opportunities for the running back, whether it's in the running game or the passing game. I love people in Minnesota this year in general on offense and fantasy football. I'll say that. How about that?
Well, we were high on them anyway, right? We were already high on that team in general. Mm-hmm. So,
we both picked them to beat the Packers and win that division.
Sorry, squad in Milwaukee. AJ Dillon could be a sleeper in touchdown heavy leagues. Disagree, but Milwaukee disagrees. Is the best number 2 running back in the league. Yeah, I think some of my sleepers. I think James Cook obviously is.
I love James Cook.
James Cook is a nice piece here. So he obviously one of the best receiving backs for the Bills in a PPR league. I think he has a lot of chances to get a lot of big time plays. And I mean, as long as he learns how to pick up blitzes and manage that, I mean, I think he's going to be. He's
going to obviously share a lot of carries. He's not going to get a ton of touches. But everything I've seen preseason from James Cook has been electric.
Yep.
Like it a lot.
Another guy I like based off of depth. Look at depth when it comes to some of these teams, because that's an important factor too. Joshua Palmer, wide receiver for the Chargers. Palmer could struggle to see, some volume initially, but Mike Williams and Keenan Allen, number 1, number 2. Mike Williams hasn't exactly always been the most consistent player on the field. He's a good player, but then he always has those moments where he's out for 2 or 3 weeks at a time. You don't know where he's coming from, but still, I think Joshua Palmer for the Chargers could come in and can't capitalize on some big time plays when it comes to injuries for some of that. Isaiah Spiller for the Chargers as well. Austin Eckler is the lead back there, but already has a high workload. I mean, when you have players with high workloads, there's that chance for injury. So stashing like an Isaiah Spiller maybe could be nice piece for you if you're looking for, something along those lines. Olave, Chris Olave is a guy that I think is not going very high in a lot of leagues. And, people are kind of low on the Saints, but keep in mind, I mean, I think, Michael Thomas, who knows what's going to happen with Michael Thomas? Obviously, he's coming back from a long stint of not being able to play in the NFL. So the fact that what we're going to see from him, is he going to play full? I mean, that's another piece that, you'll want to keep an eye on. But Olave could benefit from a lot of catches from Jameis Winston. So he's another sleeper that maybe could come up big that might not go in those first few rounds that would pay off for you. What am I seeing in the chat here? The Ewok is the highest paid running back 2 in football.
People like James Cook a lot in here. Milwaukee loves Najee Harris this year, obviously with Pittsburgh. Football Wife, I love Olave and Sky Moore. You should love Sky Moore. Squan, Travis Etienne could be an interesting selection. I'll be completely honest. I love Etienne. I said when we were previewing running backs, Chris, I love Etienne's upside. I think he's a home run threat. Listen, he literally is a guy that will frustrate you if you watch him. He might get 10 carries that go for 20 yards and you'll be like, this dude can't get it. And then the next one he takes to the house. If you get that man in space, I promise you he's electric. He is the most talented running back potentially in space that we have in the league. That's how high I am on Etienne as far as his ability in space. He just needs to get there. Just needs to figure that out. Scotty needs help with pronunciations like Chris. What did I say wrong?
Yeah, I don't think I caught it.
I said James Cook, Olave, Sky Moore, Travis Etienne. Those are all right. What did I do wrong? Damn it. I believe I probably did something wrong. I just don't know what I did.
Another one that is could be a sleeper.
Najee versus Najee. Did I say Najee?
Reckoning's always going to hold us accountable.
But to be fair, that was just because Milwaukee's best put it in is almost Najee. And that's just how I read it after reading his. You're right, though. It is Najee.
Another guy that's interesting is Tyler Algier, running back for the Falcons. Reckoning's going to probably murder me on that, too. Obviously the Atlanta Falcons have a high rate of outside zone runs over the last season. They've seen 25 years of zone running schemes. They do a lot in the running game. So with that being said, I feel like he has a chance to get in and, make an impact there. The problem I have with the Atlanta Falcons is what I said earlier is how many times are they going to be playing from behind? Now, even the Atlanta Falcons, through their struggles, have scored points and been able to put points up on the board. Now, just again, take that with a grain of salt. Atlanta, there are teams out there, bad teams that might throw the ball a ton. I prioritize wide receivers on bad teams because they're constantly throwing the ball to get back into the games. But at a certain point, the touches could add up to in some of these cases. But just keep that in mind as well. He could steal a lot of touches from Patterson, says Squan.
I mean, Patterson doesn't even deserve touches, so he could get an opportunity for sure. What excites me, honestly, so rookie quarterbacks, not someone I wouldn't draft a rookie quarterback. This is more just future reference as far as the league in general, not fantasy football. Chris, and this is not how I felt going into the draft. I was wrong. I am admitting, maybe I'm early because nothing's happened yet, but Desmond Ridder for Atlanta looks so damn good in preseason. He looks precise. He gets the ball out. He throws it more accurate than I could ever believe. Look at the tape on Desmond Ridder. Desmond Ridder has been the best rookie quarterback in preseason by far, and really, really good in general. Not just a good rookie. A really, really, and I didn't expect that. Obviously, I think Marcus Mariota is going to start this year for Atlanta. I said Arizona for a second. But dude, Desmond Ridder's tape, there's one throw. If you watch his film, the highlights on Twitter or whatever, there's one throw where he literally throws a guy that's behind another guy and he's not open at all. And he avoids the other guy by an inch and puts it in the pocket and the guy catches it. It's insane. This is not a throw you see rookies make. He puts everything on point. He needs to figure out, the system a little more. He needs to be a little smarter. He needs to develop intelligence and look at packages on defense and know that. But as far as throwing the football, I totally underestimated Desmond Ridder. Desmond Ridder looks like a legit, very, very good starting quarterback in this league. In my opinion.
Well, I remember telling you after week 1 preseason, I was there was a note there that I saw, also some highlights about Desmond Ridder looking good in that first one, and you were like, oh yeah, whatever, that sounds like. But yeah, when you do it consistently back to back, and you're putting up some highlight reels,
he looks real. And Football Wife makes a good point. That's because he's from Cincy.
Yep.
Everyone from Cincy comes out great.
Beard looking smooth, Scott. Says Broncos.
Thank you, Broncos.
Saints.
Thank you. I turned on more lights so people could see it.
Saints and Tampa are top 10 Ds. Atlanta, anything is trouble. Says Milwaukee.
I think Atlanta's D is going to be real bad.
Yeah.
And I agree. Saints and Tampa are both top 10 Ds. I agree with that. All of that. I'm not saying Atlanta is going to be good this year. I think Atlanta is going to be really, really bad. I think they're going to finish as a bottom 5 team for sure. I just think moving forward, Ridder might be much better than I anticipated. And I missed that one. Beyond belief. I didn't see that.
Sleeping quarterbacks. So we got to get to our also our pick'em. Our survivor tips as well. So I'm just going to get a couple maybe quarterbacks out here, some sleepers, maybe some busts. We'll start getting to some busts as well. And then we're going to get into our Survivor League. And then we're also going to be getting into our Coming In Hot segment. If you guys are new here, again, my name is Chris. This is Scott. We're your host for the Action Lab. We're here every Wednesday and every Sunday to just give you all the information you need and anything sports, mainly NFL, because that's what's coming up here soon. So make sure you hit that follow button if you have not already, like everyone else has been doing. It means a lot. We love to have you part of our community. But we have Coming In Hot, which is a segment Scotty does at the end where he gets fired up about one specific topic and he goes off. He has a fun time talking about those things, or an angry time talking about these things. But
usually anger, right?
Usually anger, yeah. So a couple, I think my list on sleeper quarterbacks, and this isn't necessarily a sleeper, but Trey Lance in San Francisco. San Francisco still has a nice team out there that, you know, if you miss out on some of the top quarterbacks out there, and Trey Lance is kind of hanging around in like the bottom, you know, of your draft, and you're just like, man, like I missed out on everybody. Don't sleep on Trey Lance. He can do it with his feet. San Francisco puts together game plans. He's the guy. They know what they're getting with him moving into this season, as opposed to like going in with two quarterbacks that they don't know how they're gonna. That's their guy. So San Francisco.
Trey Lance is a top 12 quarterback in the league fantasy wise this year, not performance wise, but fantasy wise, top 12
fantasy. Exactly. We're talking fantasy's different than just, you know. Yeah, it's a lot different.
Love what he can provide with his legs. Doesn't really matter. He'll be boom or bust because he will either connect deep or not connect deep on his passes. He could be really bad week to week, but there will be weeks he wins you your game. So depending on what else you have in your roster, Trey Lance is going to be a very boom or bust prospect for you.
Final sleeper for me before we get into busts, and if you have any sleepers, let me know, Scotty. But Kirk Cousins, we talked a lot about Minnesota. We talked a lot about all the weapons they have, the running game. They can open things up. They are going to be competitive this whole year. And, you know, Jefferson is out. You got, you know, Thielen, Jefferson. You got all sorts of weapons that he can throw to. And there's just high expectations for the Minnesota Vikings. And Kirk Cousins is not, you don't think of as like an elite. I mean, he's good, but he's not like top echelon. I think from a fantasy standpoint, he's going to get a lot done this year. So keep an eye on him as well. But anything else you want to add on sleepers for quarterbacks or anything?
No, I don't have a ton more there. We got people in the chat. Squan is skeptical of Trey Lance. Elijah Mitchell is going to dominate for them. I mean, San Francisco has always relied under Shanahan on their run game. I just think there's a little more upside there with Lance where it might work out better. But Milwaukee thinks Jimmy G will have more fantasy points than Lance. I don't even think Jimmy G is going to play for it. I mean, he's going to be traded or released and play as a backup for a team, maybe a starter. If he's a starter, there's 0% chance. Actually, in general, there's 0% chance that Lance doesn't score more than Jimmy G in fantasy. I'm not saying Jimmy G can't win more games than Trey Lance. It's yet to be seen with Trey Lance and whether he can win games. But fantasy-wise, Trey Lance is a way better option than Jimmy G.
Yeah. So, yeah, guys, when it comes to, you know, those kind of quarterbacks, Trey Lance, Jalen Hurts, Kyler Murray, maybe they don't win.
I hate all of them as winning quarterbacks.
You hate
but they're very good.
They're very good in fantasy. So, like, those are kind of things that you want to think about, right? So, keep that in mind. There's two different games you're playing here when it comes to fantasy scoring, fantasy winning versus a guy who can win you a football game on the football field. So,
JK said some team grabs Jimmy G this season. No. Well, yes, but Jimmy G is going to be released within the week. Otherwise, the Niners are on the hook for all of his contract, and that won't happen. They're still trying to trade him I don't think that works out, but they'll release him. They'll release him before they owe him the guaranteed money that's guaranteed this year because he's not going to play for him. So Jimmy G will be a free agent a week from now for sure. I don't know when the deadline is, but a week from now, Jimmy G will be certainly not with the 49ers. No chance.
Yeah, he's moving on. He's moving on for sure. Let's get into our running back, quarterback busts. Wide receiver, quarterback, running back. Let's see who we think is going to be, maybe
start us off, Chris.
Yeah, let's get us going here. So there's a handful of, we can start at the quarterback position. There's some that I feel are, stand out a little bit more to me that I might avoid. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to be bad, right? I mean, for instance, here, spam code yellow in the chat. You guys got it. You guys got this. I don't even need to remind you guys. But one guy that I'm hesitant on is a guy that signed a big contract in the offseason, and that's Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray, I know, has a very versatile skill set when it comes to running the ball, using his feet to make plays. But, I worry about him. I worry about now that he's paid. There's, all the questions with him studying, and I get all that. He's still going to go out and ball, right? But to put up the numbers at the valuation of a high draft pick, I just don't see him competing and getting the same fantasy points as maybe some of the other people on our lists, even some of our sleepers that we mentioned, like a Cousins, like some of these others. I worry about him. I worry about the injuries. He does a lot, and that's what worries me a little bit there. Again, Aaron Rodgers is another one that I might, they're trying to figure stuff out in Green Bay. I know we got, Milwaukee and Squand here. You guys are all about Aaron Rodgers and everything from that standpoint. But, is it going to be the same Aaron Rodgers that we're typically used to seeing when, you only have, I know Milwaukee's, I know, when you only have, some sub-tier wide receiver options that are struggling to get their routes in. And, he's still going to make them better. Quarterbacks always make their players better. Squand, I never pick Aaron Rodgers. So, yeah, you like, these are some guys that, for me, if they're there later rounds, it's just, we're talking about value. So if they're there at the top and you see like a Kyler Murray or an Aaron Rodgers, like maybe I don't pick them in like a top, in the top certain rounds of my draft. But if they're there later on, obviously you got to take them because there's more value as they fall in those drafts. So getting the value middle tier, lower tier for some of these guys, I think is there. But we're talking about guys who might not be able to have the same output that you would normally have. Any quarterbacks that come to your mind from bust standpoint?
It depends on who you decide is the quarterback that you're targeting. There's a lot of guys that aren't going to be top 10 that probably might be targeted top 10 just because, like, listen, I think Derek Carr is going to be hyped a lot, and I'm not against Derek Carr. I just don't think he's going to be a top 10 guy because he doesn't provide anything in the running game. Honestly, running game, you talked about Kyler Murray versus Aaron Rodgers. I think those quarterbacks on the field, and if I were to choose one on the field, are worlds apart. But in fantasy, I'd honestly choose Kyler Murray over Aaron Rodgers. And it pains me to say that. But Kyler Murray is a better fantasy football starting option, in my opinion, than Aaron Rodgers this year. It's just the reality of the legs and what you get for those points, and also the weapons that maybe Aaron Rodgers lacks in Green Bay versus Arizona that added Marquise Brown. It's going to get Hopkins back eventually to go along with everything else they have there. Like, they have a ton of weapons. Listen, Squan, Russell Wilson might be a bust.
The way people talk trash on Russell Wilson, I almost think he's going to be a sleeper the way everyone's just burying him this year.
Yeah, if you be honest for a second on one player, Chris, where would you, if you had to rank where Russell Wilson finished fantasy this year in quarterback play, where would you, and you can give a range if you want of like a few, so it doesn't have to be exact, but borderline, where would you think he would rank?
I think he's a top 15. I'm trying to picture where I see him ranking week in and week out from like a fantasy on like ESPN's rankings. I always check those. I always check a couple other spots. And I always like, there's always guys at the top like a Mahomes. And, when it comes to where they're ranked each week to go into that week. And I would say, he's probably in that, I would say 10 to 15 range weekly. Okay. Is where I would put him, which is, I think, standard. I don't think that's like, I don't think he's going to have a crazy, insane season and be in a top 5. I don't think he's going to have a terrible season. I think he's going to be pretty average when it comes to fantasy this year, based off of the fact that, again, he is learning a new system, new coaching staff, new everything. He hasn't played in the preseason. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. So I think that that's going to be a big piece of why he'll be next year. I think maybe depending on how he goes about things and how this team progresses and how the system progresses, maybe next year he turns into maybe something a little bit, more top tier. But I think he's mid-range there, 10 to 15.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense. Milwaukee's best. You have not even mentioned Hurts. Jalen Hurts is a great fantasy option.
So Jalen Hurts is probably one of my favorite quarterbacks in this fantasy draft. And
in fantasy, not in reality.
In fantasy. So yeah. I think he has probably some of the higher upside of a lot of the guys. I think he's in my tier. He's almost in tier 1 for me for quarterbacks.
Oh, he's not in tier 1.
Okay, you don't have to draft him tier 1.
Well, I'm definitely not going to draft him tier 1.
Well, tier 1 for me.
I love Hurts, but he's not tier 1. Who's in tier 1 for you?
Well, you have.
Go ahead.
No, yeah. You have Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, yeah. Right?
Yeah.
You have, I would say Lamar Jackson is just based off of just what he can do with his legs and what they're. I feel like he's tier 1, and I would put Jalen Hurts kind of like barely teetering in on that, in that group based off of one, the things they put around. He was a stat machine last year. He threw up stats everywhere last year, and he has more weapons this year. Like, I feel like that's something that you can value. But all right, you could argue putting him down in like a tier 2. I wouldn't put him lower than tier 2.
How many people are in tier 1 and tier 2? That's defined by anybody, but tier 1 is a lot. Can he achieve and go up to tier 1? Yes, but I wouldn't get aggressive. I'm not a huge aggressive guy on quarterbacks in general. In fantasy.
Sure. Yeah, you even mentioned you wouldn't take Patrick Mahomes even very early in your drafts. Serious.
I'm coming around on that because I think Patrick Mahomes is going to go scorch earth. I think Mahomes is going to finish as the number 1 fantasy quarterback in the league this year. And I still may not take him, but I honestly think Mahomes will finish as QB1 this year.
My contract is up at Sirius XM at 12 a.m. and Scott has so much praise for the Chiefs, but they have a weak spot at the left guard position.
No, they do not. Left guard? That's Joe Tooney, I believe. Joe Tooney, who they're paying like ridiculous amount of money for. They don't have no. Joe Tooney is one of the best left guards you'll ever see in football. Their only weakness on their offensive line, and they have a top 3 offensive line in the league, is that right tackle. That's it.
So Devil Doc shares this. His kind of. This is what we've been talking about this whole time between winning quarterbacks and what they do on the field versus fantasy. Hurst finished
a big difference.
Hurst finished outside the top 20 in passing yards and touchdowns last season, but he made up for it by leading his position in carries, rushing yards, and rushing touchdowns. So like that matters in fantasy. Like even though he didn't have statistically a great year that like helped him win a ton more games, he gets the stats. Like you get stats in losing games, just so you know. And that's
in our rankings. I think I ranked Hurts probably outside of the top 20, but in fantasy football, he's easily top 10. Easily.
So let's get into some more bust potentials here. Any other bust potentials when it comes to wide receivers, running backs, guys you might not be as high
on? Yeah, let's get it in the chat before. I don't even know. I hate hating on players.
Yeah, no. I mean, I think all right. Let me. Josh Jacobs is one of mine. Like bust. If I've been talking about Josh Jacobs for a while, don't draft him. Like, I mean, or you can draft him if you want. But there's guys that Josh Jacobs. We already know that McDaniels doesn't like to run the ball. Josh Jacobs is not a McDaniels guy. I don't think Josh Jacobs is going to be anything special. He's carried, what did I say, 130 times each of the last 5 years and has been average at best. Like it's not a great situation for a guy that they've built more running backs behind him to take over his role. Keep an eye on that. I don't think that that's going to be anywhere. I don't want anything about Josh Jacobs. Let's see others. Tyreek Hill is. I don't know how I feel about Tyreek Hill. I think he'll get stats. I think he'll get catches, but I worry about he's not going to get the yard. He's not going to get the downfield completions as much as he got with Patrick Mahomes. Mm-hmm. So if you're looking for those big time over the top plays, drafting Tyreek Hill at a very, very high range in your draft could be biting you in the butt if he's not getting those 60, 70 yard bombs from Patrick Mahomes. So I know Tua's very accurate, it sounds, but does he have the arm to throw it that far downfield and be accurate? I don't know if I love that. So Tyreek Hill is a very high-end drafted player at the moment. Keep an eye on him to maybe have a little regression.
So to be clear, Chris, you're a little down on Tyreek.
I think he'll still have a nice year from a fantasy standpoint. I just don't think it's going to be as
not based off of where he's drafted, though.
Yeah, and I have to look at average draft position for him. I haven't seen. I've been looking more at quarterbacks and some of the other running back positions, but
because all I've heard as a Chiefs fan is how the Chiefs will regress because they lost Tyreek Hill. Okay. Right? I mean, you've heard that. Mm-hmm. You've heard that. That's the main argument. When you look at the Chiefs from a distance, you're like, well, they lost Tyreek Hill. And don't get me wrong, they're not replacing Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill is unreplaceable.
No. There's nobody that has that speed that goes, yeah.
But their depth is so much better. I had such a good point that now I'm forgetting, Chris.
Serious in the chat. Serious, I think you're in our Discord. We have a betting in our Discord. So he's like, I'll place a bet out that the Chargers will be better than the Chiefs this year. So
put it in the Discord, Serious, because I will take that bet in a second.
So so Serious, you could bet anything you want. Maybe it's like, if you want a hoodie or if you want like some merchandise or something from ActionLab, and then we can wager, maybe gifted subs on the other end. Like, we could do a lot of fun things with that. So go ahead and put that in there. I'm sure Scott would take that in a second.
I think my point with Tyreek is like everyone was pointing out that the Chiefs are going to be down because they lost Tyreek. But I don't feel like people are hyping up the Dolphins gaining Tyreek. So which is it, Chris? Which is it? Is it Tyreek is going to help a team a lot, or is Tyreek not a big difference factor? And I also think it depends on the quarterback.
Tua is the biggest factor that I'm concerned about. But I think Tua has Waddle and Tyreek
to throw to, which is the perfect combination for underneath throws that he needs to make. Because he can't throw deep. We know he can't throw deep.
You're going to be
Tua
getting
is limited.
I think you're going to be getting a lot more points from the individual catches, more so than the long bombs that you're used to.
Oh, with those two, for sure.
Than the long bombs that you're used to. So they'll rack up. But
I argue why people argue so hard on why the Chiefs are going to be worse because they lost Tyreek, but then they don't really upgrade the Dolphins based off of getting Tyreek. So which is it?
Ooh.
I promise you, it's both. The Dolphins are going to be much better because of Tyreek and what he presents because of the limitations with Tua. The Chiefs' offense is going to be fine. The Chiefs' offense is going to be a top 3 offense of the league without Tyreek. I promise you that.
Sirius wants to see Scott wear a Florida State hoodie if the Chiefs are worse than the Chargers this year.
Is that what it is?
Is that
all right? What are you? Serious? What are you gonna do if the Chargers are worse?
Yeah,
I mean, it's got to be an even bet. So maybe he's not like he said. Scotty last year shitted on my Florida State. I think everyone shitted on Florida State last year. No offense. Serious, they were just bad.
Serious, you let me know. How about you want to just do gifted subs? You want to do something else? You want to do?
All right, Serious. Listen, yeah. You gift. All right, we're doing Chargers versus Chiefs.
Better record.
Better record. It's a push. If we finish with the same record, it's obviously a push. If I win, if the Chiefs win more games, I get 8 subs in our chat here. If you win, what did he want?
He wants you to wear a Florida State hoodie.
I will buy a Florida State hoodie and wear it. How many times do you want me to wear it? 3 times on stream? And I'll rep it. Yeah. I don't really have a problem with Florida State.
Okay, there it is. Serious. Throw that in the I think it's lab versus lab rats in our Discord. Yep. In case you didn't know, there we go. There's our Discord. And then contests. To join our contests, there you go.
Ooh, Serious made it better. He made it 20 subs. Chris, how do I get us all of our subs? Serious is going to gift us 20 subs when the Chiefs win more games than the Chargers, which I guarantee they will do. It's so easy. I don't even have to do anything for that.
So we are getting towards the bottom of the hour here, and we have still to talk about the Survivor, which, by the way, we have our Pick'em and our Survivor leagues coming up. Make sure you join in if you have not already. They're free to enter. You win some sweet prizes if you finish at the top. So the more people that enter, the more prizes we will be giving away to the top tiered finishers. So, because you commit nuts on, yeah, it's true. It's true.
I appreciate it, Serious. I'm ready to buy a Florida State hoodie and wear it multiple, and I'll even hype it. I'll hype it.
Scotty money ain't a thing in a good way. There we go. I
like that.
I like that. All right. So yeah, guys, approach your fantasy leagues with, do your studying, do your mock drafts. Make sure you guys are ready to go. We have our leagues are going off, one tomorrow, one on Monday. So, we'll be drafting those, but I know you guys have your work leagues. You have all these other leagues. We've already released our tier lists previously. So go back and check those out on our VODs, on our YouTube channel, on our podcast. You could always listen in when you're just at work or chilling out. You could always do all those things. So make sure you go in and just get some of our insights on those. But
Chris, you didn't mention if anyone has an upcoming draft and they're concerned and they want some advice, I can be hand in hand with you for a mere $35. It's not a lot. I mean, Chris, they're going to win the league.
Yeah.
You laugh. But it's literally $35 to gain. How much is the league? Is it $1,000? I'll beat that league too.
Siri says, Scott, it's all out of love, brother.
Absolutely.
All out of love. Yeah, we love you, Sirius. We love all you guys. Appreciate all your it's gonna be fun. All the trash talk, all the fun, throughout the course of all of these contests. It's gonna be great to get to know. And guys, if you guys have fantasy questions throughout the NFL season, hit us with them so we can help you win your leagues, right? Tomorrow should be interesting. Yeah, absolutely. Let's get into survivor pool tips. Now this is another thing that we have going on. Now, I love survivor pool because there's it's just outpick, outplay, outlast, just like it says here. I think the furthest I've ever made it was week 12 or 13. Now, I've only done that once ever.
It's actually pretty good.
12 or 13, and I haven't eclipsed 8 outside of that. 8, 7, 8, somewhere around there. Because usually, I get burned by Baltimore or something stupid when they play a garbage team. I think at one point, I think they lost to Cincinnati. But how Survivor Pool works is you pick one team each week to win. That's it. They have to win. If they win, you can't use that team again. That team is checked off. You can't. So if you use all of your top, you use the Bills, the Chiefs, the Bucks. You use all the best teams right off the bat. You might be in trouble because
don't forget the Broncos, Chris.
Yeah, you're right.
That's so funny. That's hilarious.
You don't have to laugh about that.
The Broncos is a top team.
You want to save save the Broncos for your last because they're going to guarantee you that win.
Destined to 9-8.
Oh my goodness. So that's how it works. If you lose, you're out. If you win, you move on. Right? Woo! Says Unknown. Woo! What's up, Unknown? How we doing? So that's how this works. It's free to enter for our contest, but some strategies. Scotty, what are some of your strategies? I'll go into some of mine, but this is a lot more simple than fantasy football in a lot of ways, just because it's there's a lot less moving parts of injuries. Basically, how do you approach picking your team each week? And then I'll talk about my approach. And
sure. If you're in a heavy league and you really, really want to prepare, and to be fair, I have performed terribly in these leagues. I have not been close to winning any of them. So take my advice, and I'm being honest here. Take my advice with a grain of salt. But I would map it out with your initial projections prior to the season starting, and map out week to week. I would put a large emphasis on home games. I would pick home teams more often than not if you can, based off the week to week. Develop a strategy before any games are played. You can change that strategy, but I would give the advice: develop a year-long strategy based off of, all right, week to week, this is where I think I should go. And I have a strategy. If that changes, that's fine. But at the same time, at least you have a developed strategy where you're not just picking the most obvious pick week one and you're like, oh, now I'm in a bad place because I picked in the first 4 weeks. I'm still in it, but I don't have any obvious picks anymore. I have crappy teams to pick from. You can't just pick the most obvious picks week to week. You have to map out the schedule. You have to figure out, all right, week to week, where's the most obvious play here, and develop a strategy from there. And again, I'm saying that from a vantage point that I'm terrible. I've been terrible at this. I feel like I should be good at it, Chris, but I've been terrible. I have not been close to winning any of these.
I feel like I've had more success than this than I have. And that's not, saying much. That my best week was week 13. But I will say though, look at divisions and which teams play who.
Let's go.
let's like as far as like your divisions go, there's weaker divisions, there's stronger divisions. Playing matchups and playing like, look at travel schedules. When there's a team traveling from the West Coast to the East Coast in the early morning and you're strapped and there's like a bunch of bad matchups and you don't like any of them, those tend to have some impact on the team traveling from West Coast to East Coast playing in the morning games. So, those really make a difference when you're torn between a couple tight picks and you're like getting down to the wire. Look at those. But, trends on, maybe you pick the Saints against the Buccaneers because it's like, that's one of the better matchups and that they're going to crush the Tampa Bay Buccaneers each and every time they play them. That's kind of been the trend recently, right? So, I mean, I'm not saying that like that's going to happen again, but I'm just saying like keep those matchups. Matchups matter. Keep those in mind. Look at point spreads if you're into that. If you're into gambling and you understand point spreads, that's helpful sometimes. But it's not an end-all be-all. Those point spreads those can get kind of messy. But Siri says, best sports show on Twitch. You survived the summer blues. Let's go.
Thank you, Sirius.
If there's one thing that we tried to do, it's try to keep sports at the forefront. And
we noticed a lot of people, especially on Twitch, that were sports related in football season, moved away from it. We didn't want to do that. No. We're going to hang in. We're going to see. We'll figure it out. We're going to see what happens. We're excited to get back into the NFL, but we appreciate everyone who has followed throughout and the fact that we have literally we're not killing it, Chris, but we're doing beyond expectations as far as like
what we ever thought.
Like people are literally watching us and hanging out with us, and that's all that matters. Serious. Again, reach out to Chris. Honestly,
yep.
I'm very, very passionate. I promise you, we will help out with Dr. J in any fashion we can with whatever's going on there, funeral services or whatever. I can't imagine. But thank you, Sirius, and we'll look forward to hanging out with you moving forward here.
So, Rec, still going on. What tips have I missed for Survivor? So, again, we'll recap these real quick. Yeah, so keep an eye on matchups when it comes to certain division matchups. Just keep an eye on like travel when a team's traveling West Coast to East Coast and have his morning game. That might be tough for that team traveling, or vice versa. West Coast, that's a big factor.
And schedule it all out before the season starts.
Yeah, you can always look ahead on. There's matrices that are out there that you can look at strength of schedule for each week of each, like Google. You can, and I like to do this too. It's not a secret. Google like pool, survivor pool matrix or survivor pool matchups, and you're going to get these.
The first I'm hearing of this, Chris.
There's going to be like a full season of like, and they have red and green based off of like how easy the matchups are. So maybe map that out too. So it's like, all right, I see Indianapolis is playing, a winnable game on week 14 against Tennessee or something. Like you can say, all right, maybe I that's when I pick Indianapolis because they're going to be good this year. I feel like they're going to be good. I'm going to go ahead and pick them to win that game because that's the most I'm just using that as an example. It could be any teams, but you can find.
I would try and map out before the season and having a favorite of 3 or more every week of the year prior to the season, and things can change and you adapt and evolve. But I think it's important to go in with a plan.
Yeah. So with all that being said, join in. Rec, can you throw the contest, !contest in one more time for everyone to join in? And it's free to play. We can have a lot of fun and see how long you can outpick, outplay, and outlast. Serious. AWS is coming out with NFL stats platform in October since they are doing Thursday Night Football. That's fantastic. I mean, that is the platform that is doing Thursday Night Football here on Twitch. So, with that being said, Scotty, it's looking. I'm hoping we can still do something with Thursday Night Football, regardless whether it's like an official thing with Twitch or whether it's just us doing it. We're going to be doing it. So join us here that first game. We can't wait to be with you guys, and we're going to hit it hard. We're going to have some fun games to play during the game that are interactive with the game. So, I mean, Sunday Night Football, we do bingo. We do all the fun games with that. That's exciting. We gift out subs to the community with every bingo that, whatever. Patrick Mahomes throws 5 touchdowns, and
that's too easy of a bingo. He's clearly going to do that week to week,
or
Chris.
whatever it may be. Drew Lock throws 3 interceptions, and
Bronco hater. Cool.
Well, that's gonna happen. That's obviously going to happen. That's an easy bingo too.
I'm not sure it is.
So we're
Chris. What will happen to Bronco fans? Okay. And you know what I'm going to say here.
Nothing's going to happen because we're not going to lose.
What will happen to Bronco fans if Drew Lock starts for the Seahawks week 1, Monday Night Football at home against the Broncos and Russell Wilson, and the Seahawks win that game? It's gonna be a shitstorm in Denver.
It's not gonna happen.
I want that to happen so badly. You should want that for our show, Chris. You should want that to happen. Nope. It'll be so entertaining. It'll be so amazing. You should stop being selfish. You should want that to happen because it's gonna be epic.
Hey, Fireball. Thank you for the raid. Appreciate the love, Fireball.
What's going on? How was your stream?
I hope you had a great stream over there. Let's give a shout out to Fireball. And hopefully it was good. What's been going on? How's your week going? But no, I don't worry about shit that doesn't it's not realistic. So
are you saying there's no chance?
I mean, I would say there's a 97% chance that the Broncos win that game.
This feels like there's a wager involved where you have to do something a lot worse than I have to if you lose.
Okay.
Because you said 97%.
Yeah.
I only have a 3% chance of winning.
Yeah.
We'll figure this out, but
we'll talk.
We're gonna have a oh goodness.
I mean,
you're gonna have
any given Sunday, crazy shit happens, but
97. Sure, 97.
Have a good night, Reckoning, and everyone at ActionLab. Thank you, Fireball. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it, Fireball.
But it is the bottom of the hour, and we need to get to a coming in hot with Scotty A. Smith. Let's go ahead. Let's transition to that. We have a topic here that we're gearing up for the NFL season. We have preseason in the books almost here. It's wrapping up very, very quickly, and then we are only hold on to your butts. Let's go. 14 days, 15 hours, 47 minutes, and 45 seconds. That is
it's
fast.
so close.
So